She was just a homeless street singer, performing for coins in a dark subway tunnel. Every night, the same silent man in the expensive suit stood there listening, leaving $100 bills in her guitar case like they meant nothing. What she didn't know, the stranger was a mafia boss who'd lost everything, and her voice sounded exactly like his dead wife's. The fluorescent lights of the 42nd Street subway station flickered like dying stars. It was past midnight, and the platform had emptied to just a handful of souls, the kind who had nowhere else to be. Ivy Martinez sat cross-legged against the tiled wall, her guitar case open at her feet. Inside lay a crumpled $5 bill and a scattering of coins that wouldn't buy her dinner. Her fingers moved across the strings, pulling out a melody that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than her throat, somewhere ancient and aching. In the darkness, I still see your face. In the silence, I still hear your name. Her voice echoed through the tunnel, raw and haunting. A businessman hurried past without looking. A teenage couple paused, smiled sadly, then kept walking. This was New York. Everyone had their own problems. But then, the air changed. Ivy felt it before she saw him, a presence that made the temperature drop. She glanced up mid-verse and her breath caught. A man stood at the edge of the platform, perfectly still. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than she'd made in 6 months. His face was chiseled and severe, with dark eyes that seemed to hold entire storms. He wasn't looking at his phone, wasn't checking the time. He was just listening to her. Something about his intensity made Ivy's voice waver for just a second. Most people who stopped to listen wore pleasant expressions, tapping their feet, maybe filming on their phones. This man looked like he was being tortured. His jaw was clenched, his hands balled into fists at his sides, and yet he didn't move, didn't blink. She almost stopped singing. Almost. Instead, she closed her eyes and let the song pour out, pretending he wasn't there. The melody shifted into something softer, more intimate, a lullaby her grandmother used to hum when Ivy couldn't sleep in their cramped Bronx apartment before the eviction, before the streets became home. Sleep now, my darling. The night is yours. Dream of tomorrow, of open doors. When she opened her eyes again, the man's expression had cracked. Just barely. His eyes glistened under the harsh station lights, though no tears fell. He looked like a statue learning how to bleed. The downtown train roared into the station, its brakes screaming. The handful of waiting passengers shuffled forward. Ivy expected the man to board, to disappear like everyone else always did. He didn't move. The train sat for 30 seconds, doors open, waiting. He stood there, locked in place, as if her song had pinned him to the concrete. Finally, the doors chimed and slid shut. The train pulled away, leaving him behind. Now they were alone. Ivy's fingers faltered on the strings. She let the last note hang in the air between them, then fade into silence. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The station felt impossibly quiet, like the world had stopped turning just for this. Then, without a word, the man walked toward her. Ivy's heart hammered. She'd been on the streets long enough to know danger when it approached. She'd learned to read people, the drunk ones, the angry ones, the ones who thought a homeless girl was easy prey. But this man? She couldn't read him at all. He moved with the controlled grace of a predator, each step deliberate and silent. He stopped 3 feet away. Up close, she could see the details, the expensive watch on his wrist, the faint scar running through his left eyebrow, the way his hands trembled slightly before he shoved them into his pockets. That song, he said, his voice rough, like he hadn't used it in days. It carried a faint Italian accent. Where did you learn it? Ivy swallowed. My grandmother. She used to sing it to me. The words. Who wrote them? I don't know. She said it was old. From the old country, maybe. Why? His jaw worked, muscles tensing beneath his skin. He looked away, staring down the dark tunnel where the train had vanished. For a moment, she thought he might just walk away without answering. Instead, he pulled out his wallet. Ivy tensed, but he simply withdrew several bills. She couldn't see the denominations in the dim light, and dropped them into her guitar case. When she looked down, her eyes went wide.
Hundreds.
5 of them. Wait, I can't. But when she looked up, he was already walking away, his footsteps echoing against the tiles. She scrambled to her feet, clutching her guitar. Hey, this is too much. He stopped at the base of the stairs leading up to the street. Turned halfway, his profile sharp as broken glass. Keep singing that song, he said quietly. And stay on this platform. Nowhere else. Not until I say otherwise. Before she could ask what the hell that meant, he was gone, disappearing up the stairs like smoke. Ivy stood there, heart pounding, staring at the $500 in her case. Her first thought was drugs. Her second was human trafficking. Her third was that maybe, just maybe, she'd stumbled into something far stranger than either. She should leave. Should take the money and find a different station, a different corner of the city to sing. But something in his eyes haunted her, that raw, broken look, like her grandmother's lullaby had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart until it bled. Against every instinct, Ivy sat back down, picked up her guitar, and waited to see if the strange, sad man in the expensive suit would return. The next night, at 11:47 p.m., he did. Same platform, same position at the edge, away from the few scattered commuters. This time, Ivy was ready. She'd washed her face in a gas station bathroom, brushed her hair, even borrowed a cleaner shirt from the shelter. Stupid, maybe, but something about him made her want to look less broken. When their eyes met across the platform, he gave the smallest nod. Permission, maybe. Or acknowledgement. Ivy began to sing. Matteo Ricci stood in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. The floor-to-ceiling windows reflected his hollow expression, a ghost in an expensive suit. Behind him, his consigliere, Vincent, cleared his throat. Boss, the shipment from. Cancel it. Vincent blinked. Cancel? But Rafael Costa will take that as. I don't care what Rafael takes it as. Matteo's voice was ice. He turned from the window, his eyes dark and distant. Reschedule. I have somewhere to be. Vincent knew better than to argue when Matteo used that tone. In 15 years of service, he'd seen his boss order executions with less emotion than he showed for this. Whatever this was. For the past 3 weeks, Matteo had been vanishing every night around 11.
No guards.
No driver. Just him and the shadows. And when he returned in the early morning hours, he looked different. Haunted, yes, but less empty. Like someone had reminded him he still had a pulse. It was dangerous. The Ricci syndicate had enemies on every corner, and Rafael Costa had been probing their territory like a wolf testing a fence. This wasn't the time for the boss to be wandering the city alone. But Vincent held his tongue. He'd learned that lesson the hard way. After Vincent left, Matteo walked to his bedroom. Past the California king bed he never slept in. Past the closet full of $1,000 suits. He stopped at the far wall, pressing his palm against a panel that clicked open to reveal a hidden room. Inside, the air smelled of old perfume and dust. Photographs covered one wall, all of the same woman. Lena. Dark hair cascading over bare shoulders. Eyes bright with laughter. In some photos she held a microphone, caught mid-song at various nightclubs. In others, she was tangled in Matteo's arms, both of them younger, both of them still capable of joy. In the center of the room sat a small recording studio setup. One microphone, one stool, and on the music stand, sheet music for a song titled Ninna Nanna della Notte, Night Lullaby. Lena's song. The one she'd been writing the week before Rafael Costa's men put 3 bullets in her chest outside a restaurant in Little Italy. 4 years ago. 4 years of hunting Rafael through every dark corner of the city, and still the bastard remained untouchable, protected by his connections and his army. 4 years of silence. Until 3 weeks ago, when Matteo heard a voice in the subway that made his dead heart remember how to break. He pulled out his phone, dialing a number.
Marco.
Status report. She's fine, boss. Marco's voice was crisp, professional. Stayed on the 42nd Street platform from 11 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. Made about $60, not counting your contribution. She slept at the 14th Street shelter. No one bothered her. Keep it that way. Matteo had 6 men rotating surveillance on Ivy Martinez. She had no idea that the businessman who'd accidentally knocked over a mugger approaching her last Tuesday was on payroll. Or that the transit cop who'd chased off 3 drunk college kids last Friday answered to the Ricci family. He told himself it was just precaution. That Raphael had eyes everywhere, and if his enemy discovered Matteo had taken an interest in some homeless girl. But that was a lie. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. When Ivy sang, Lena's voice echoed through the corridors of his memory. Same warm tone, same gentle vibrato. And that lullaby, the one Lena had hummed while writing her final song, somehow this girl knew it. Word for word, note for note. It was impossible. Lena's song had never been recorded, never performed publicly. She'd played it for Matteo exactly once, 2 days before she died, sitting at this very piano. Sleep now, my darling. The night is yours. He'd woken from nightmares to that melody for 4 years. And now a 23-year-old street singer with no connection to his world sang it like she'd been born knowing it. Matteo didn't believe in ghosts. He didn't believe in fate or second chances, or any of the fairy tales weak men told themselves to sleep at night. But he believed in patterns, in debts, in the idea that the universe sometimes circled back on itself in ways that defied logic. His phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. Raphael's men spotted near the Upper West Side. Moving in your direction. Matteo's jaw clenched. The Costa family was getting bold, pushing into his territory, testing him. They'd heard the whispers that Matteo Ricci was distracted, softening, losing his edge. They weren't entirely wrong. He typed back, handle it. I'll be back by dawn. Then he grabbed his coat and headed for the door. The subway platform was calling. And so was the girl whose voice carried ghosts. As he stepped into his private elevator, Matteo caught his reflection in the polished steel doors. For the first time in 4 years, he saw something other than a dead man walking. He saw someone with a reason to stay alive. Even if that reason made no sense at all. Ivy had counted the money 17 times. $3,400. All hundreds, all crisp, all placed carefully in her guitar case over 3 weeks by the silent man who never smiled. She tried to refuse it after the first week. Tried to talk to him, ask his name, understand why he kept coming back. But he'd only shake his head, listen to her sing, and disappear before she could follow. Tonight was different. Tonight, he arrived with another man, shorter, older, with calculating eyes that swept the platform like he was cataloging threats. The older man whispered something urgent. The stranger, her stranger, she'd started thinking of him, waved him off impatiently. Then he walked straight toward her, not stopping at his usual distance. Ivy's fingers froze on the guitar strings. There's a cafe, he said without preamble. 2 blocks north. Vesuvio's. Meet me there tomorrow. 2 p.m. Her heart hammered. Why? Because I'm tired of listening to you in a subway tunnel. His voice was softer than usual, almost gentle. You deserve better than this. You don't know anything about me. I know you're talented. I know you're wasting that talent singing to rats and drunks. He paused. I own a lounge in Midtown. The Crimson Room. I want you to perform there. Ivy's breath caught. The Crimson Room. She'd seen it once, walking past its gleaming entrance on Fifth Avenue. Red velvet ropes, doormen in suits, people who looked like they'd stepped out of magazines. I'm not that kind of singer. Yes, he said quietly. You are. The certainty in his voice made her chest tighten. No one had ever looked at her like that, like she was worth something beyond spare change and pity. I don't even know your name. He hesitated, something flickering behind his eyes. Mateo. Ivy, she waited, but he didn't offer a last name. Why are you doing this? Does it matter? Yes. The older man behind him shifted impatiently, but Mateo ignored him. He studied Ivy's face like he was trying to memorize it, or perhaps trying to see someone else there. Because your voice deserves to be heard, he finally said. 2 p.m. Vesuvio's. Don't make me come looking for you. He turned and walked away, his companion hurrying after him. Ivy sat there long after they'd gone, her mind racing. Every survival instinct she'd developed on the street screamed that this was wrong. Too good to be true. Men like that, wealthy, powerful, mysterious, didn't help girls like her without wanting something. But when she closed her eyes, she remembered the pain in his face when she sang. The way his hands trembled. The look of a man drowning who'd just glimpsed air. She went to Vesuvio's. The cafe was elegant but understated. Exposed brick, soft jazz, the smell of espresso and fresh pastries. Ivy felt impossibly out of place in her thrift store jeans and worn jacket. Mateo sat in a corner booth, looking at ease in a way he never had on the subway platform. Here, in daylight, she could see him clearly. Mid-30s. Handsome in a harsh, classical way, like a Renaissance sculpture of a warrior. And tired. God, he looked tired. He stood when she approached. Actually stood like she was someone important. You came. I shouldn't have. But you did. He gestured to the seat across from him. A menu already waited, along with a cappuccino. I ordered for you. Caramel macchiato. That's right, isn't it? Ivy froze. How did you? You had one outside the shelter last week. The coffee cart on 14th inch. A chill ran down her spine. You've been watching me. Protecting you, his voice was matter-of-fact, without apology. The streets aren't safe for young women alone. Especially ones who draw attention. That's creepy. Yes, he met her eyes. It is. But you're alive, aren't you? You haven't been robbed. Haven't been hurt. 3 separate incidents that never happened because my people were there. Ivy's mouth went dry. Your people? What are you, some kind of businessman? The word was smooth as silk and twice as slippery. I have resources. I use them to protect investments. I'm not an investment. No, something shifted in his expression. You're not. Silence stretched between them. Ivy should leave. Should run. But instead, she picked up the macchiato and took a sip. Perfect temperature. Perfect sweetness. The lounge job, she said carefully. What's the catch?
No catch.
You sing 4 nights a week. Jazz standards, originals, whatever you want. I pay you $2,000 a week, plus tips. You get a hotel room until you find an apartment. It was too much. Way too much.
Why?
Mateo's jaw tightened. He looked down at his espresso, then back up at her. You sing a song. A lullaby. Where did you really learn it? There it was. The real question. I told you. My grandmother. Your grandmother's name was Rosa Martinez. Born in Naples, 1943. Immigrated to New York in 1967. He recited the facts like he'd memorized them. That lullaby is Neapolitan. Very old. Very specific. Ivy's blood ran cold. You investigated me? I investigate everyone. He leaned forward. My wife knew that song. She was writing a version of it before she died. I've never heard anyone else sing it. Until you. The words hung in the air like smoke. I'm sorry about your wife, Ivy whispered. So, am I? His voice cracked, just barely. Will you sing for me? At the Crimson Room? Every instinct said no. But looking at this broken, dangerous man, Ivy found herself nodding. Okay. His shoulders sagged with relief. Rehearsal starts Monday, 7 p.m. As she left the cafe, Ivy glanced back. Mateo sat perfectly still, staring at nothing, looking like a man who'd just made a deal with a ghost. She had no idea how right she was. The Crimson Room was everything Ivy had imagined and nothing she'd expected. Red velvet curtains, crystal chandeliers, tables populated by people who wore wealth like a second skin. But beneath the elegance lurked something else. Tension, watchful eyes, men in expensive suits who moved like coiled springs. She'd been rehearsing for 2 weeks. Every evening, Mateo sat in the back corner, silent as stone, while she worked with the house band. He never commented, never critiqued. Just listened with that same haunted expression. Tonight, something was different. Vincent, the older man from the subway, burst through the side door mid-rehearsal. His face was pale. "Boss, we need to talk."
Now.
Mateo's expression darkened.
I'm busse.
Raphael knows. The temperature in the room plummeted. The band stopped playing. Even the bartender froze mid-pour. Mateo stood slowly, his movements controlled but deadly. Everyone out, except Ivy. The band scattered like startled birds. Within seconds, the lounge was empty except for Ivy, Mateo, and Vincent. "What did you just say?" Ivy's voice was small. Vincent looked at her with something like pity. "You should go too, miss." "This doesn't." "She stays." Mateo's tone allowed no argument. He turned to Vincent. "Explain." "Raphael's men have been tailing her for 3 days. They know she's important to you. He sent this." Vincent held out a phone showing a photograph, Ivy leaving her new hotel that morning. The message below it read, "Pretty songbird. Just like the last one." Ivy's stomach turned to ice. "Who's Raphael? What is this?" Mateo's hands clenched into fists. When he spoke, his voice was barely human. "Vincent, call everyone. Full mobilization. If Raphael wants a war, he'll get 1 inch. Boss, think about this. He's baiting you." "I don't care." The roar echoed through the empty lounge. Mateo's control shattered like glass. He killed Lena. Now he's threatening Ivy. "I should have buried him 4 years ago." The words hung in the air. Ivy felt the world tilt sideways. "Lena," she whispered. "Your wife."
She was
killed. Mateo turned to her, and for the first time, she saw past the expensive clothes and cold exterior. She saw rage,
grief,
and something that looked like madness. Rafael Costa runs the Costa crime family. For years ago, he ordered my wife's execution to send me a message. She was a singer. Like you, his voice dropped to something raw and broken. She died because I couldn't protect her. Crime family. Execution. The words crashed over Ivy like freezing water. She couldn't say it. Mafia, Mateo finished. Head of the Ricci syndicate. I've killed 37 men, Ivy. Some with my own hands. I'm not a good person. She should run. Should scream. Should do anything except stand there, rooted to the spot. "The money," she said numbly. "The protection.
This job."
It was all. "I heard your voice and I heard her," his voice cracked. "That song you sing. Lena wrote it. I never told anyone the words. Never recorded it. But you knew it. Every note. Every word. Like she was singing through you." Ivy's mind raced. Her grandmother's lullaby. The Neapolitan melody she'd known since childhood. "That's impossible." "I know." Mateo moved toward her, and she flinched. He stopped, pain flashing across his face. "I know it's impossible.
But I heard it anyway.
And when Raphael takes things from me, they don't come back. So I'm what? Bait? A replacement?" "No," the word was fierce. "You're alive. And you're going to stay that way. Vincent, take her to the safe house in Queens. Full security detail." "Wait." Ivy's voice rose. "You can't just lock me away. I'm not your property. You are if it keeps you breathing." Mateo's control was gone now, his accent thickening with emotion. "Raphael doesn't make threats. He makes corpses. I won't," his voice broke. "I won't watch another woman die because of me." Vincent moved toward Ivy, but she backed away.
"No.
This is insane. You're all insane, Miss Martinez." Vincent's tone was almost gentle. "Rafael Costa is a monster. If he knows Mateo cares about you, You're already marked. The safe house is your only option. My only option is to leave. She grabbed her jacket. Get away from all of you. Mateo's voice stopped her at the door. If you leave my protection, you'll be dead by morning. She turned, tears of frustration burning her eyes. Maybe I should have stayed in the subway. Maybe. His face was stone again. The brief crack of emotion sealed over. But you didn't. And now we both have to live with that. In a penthouse across town, Rafael Costa watched security footage of the Crimson Room on his laptop. He was 63, silver-haired, and smiled like a grandfather. The smile never reached his eyes. The girl leaves in 15 minutes, his lieutenant reported. Queen's safe house. Heavy escort. Rafael sipped his wine. Let them go. We wait. Wait for what, boss? For Mateo to make a mistake, Rafael's smile widened. Love makes men stupid. First it made him weak. Now it will make him reckless. And when he comes for us, because he will come, we'll be ready. He closed the laptop, studying his reflection in the dark screen. For years I've waited for this. For him to care about something again. He raised his glass in a mock toast. To history repeating itself.
Salute.
The Queen's safe house was a converted brownstone with iron bars on the windows and men with guns on every floor. Ivy had been there for 6 days, and each one felt like a year. She wasn't allowed to leave. Wasn't allowed to call anyone. Not that she had anyone to call. Her phone had been taken for security. Her only connection to the outside world was the television and the rotating guards who brought her meals and spoke in monosyllables. Mateo hadn't visited once. On the 7th night, Ivy made a decision. She'd survived on the streets for 3 years. She'd escaped abusive foster homes, dodged predators, and carved out an existence from nothing. She wasn't going to become a prisoner in a gilded cage, no matter how dangerous the world outside. At 2 a.m., she picked the lock on her bedroom door, a skill learned from a street kid named Tommy who'd been dead 2 years now. The hallway was quiet. She could hear one guard snoring in the living room. She moved like smoke, remembering every lesson the streets had taught her. Past the sleeping guard. Out the back door. Over the fence into the alley. Freedom tasted like cold October air. She ran 3 blocks before allowing herself to slow down. The neighborhood was industrial, mostly warehouses and loading docks. Empty. A bus stop sign glowed ahead. If she could just reach it, catch the end train, disappear into the city. A van pulled up beside her. The door slid open. 3 men jumped out. Ivy ran, but hands caught her jacket, her arms, covered her mouth before she could scream. A cloth pressed against her face, chemicals sweet, burning her nose. The world spun, darkened, and swallowed her whole. Mateo was in a meeting with his captains when his phone rang. Marco's name on the screen. He answered immediately. Tell me.
She's gone, boss.
Picked the lock, slipped past Jenkins around 2. We've been searching for her. Mateo didn't hear the rest. The phone cracked in his grip. Around the table, his men went silent, recognizing the look on their boss's face, the one that preceded bloodshed. His second phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mateo Ricci. Rafael Costa's voice was warm, grandfatherly. How are you this fine evening? Where is she? Ah, straight to business.
No plaisanteries.
Your father would be disappointed, Rafael chuckled. The girl is safe.
For now.
Comfortable, even. I'm not a barbarian. Mateo's hand trembled with the effort of not crushing the phone. If you hurt her. You'll what? Storm my compound?
Declare va?
Please do. I've been preparing for this for 4 years. Ever since I watched you bury your pretty wife and lose your fire, Rafael's voice hardened. You became weak, Mateo. Hiding in your penthouse, playing at businessman. You forgot what we are. I remember exactly what we are.
Do you?
Then prove it. Come get your songbird. Come to the old dockyards on Pier 71. Come alone, or she dies like Lena died, slowly, with a bullet in her chest, calling for someone who can't save her. The line went dead. Vincent spoke first. It's a trap. Obviously, Mateo stood, his voice ice. Call everyone. Every soldier, every associate, everyone who owes us. I want 50 men ready in 30 minutes. Boss, if you bring an army, he'll kill her immediately. I said call them. Mateo's eyes were black pits. Raphael wants me to come alone, so he can kill us both. He wants to end the Ricci family tonight. But he's forgotten something. What? I have nothing left to lose. Mateo pulled his gun from its holster, checked the chamber. And a man with nothing to lose is the most dangerous man alive. Ivy woke to darkness and the smell of rust and seawater. Her head pounded. Her wrists were zip-tied to a metal chair. When her eyes adjusted, she saw she was in some kind of warehouse, cavernous, abandoned, with broken windows letting in slivers of moonlight. A door opened. Footsteps approached.
Awake.
Excellent. The voice was warm, cultured. An older man stepped into the light, silver hair, expensive suit, kind eyes. He looked like someone's grandfather.
I'm Raphael.
I'm very sorry about the rough treatment. My men can be overzealous. Let me go. Her voice was steadier than she felt.
Soon.
Very soon. You're just a guest, Miss Martinez. Bait if we're being honest. But I promise, once your friend Mateo arrives, this will all be over quickly. He's not my friend.
No. Rafael Smail.
He spent thousands protecting you, pulled his men from critical operations, neglected his business. And for what? A girl he barely knows? He leaned closer. Or perhaps he does know you. Perhaps you remind him of someone. Ivy's throat tightened. His wife. Ah, so he told you about Lena. How sweet. Raphael's smile never wavered. Did he tell you she begged? That she promised me anything. Money, information, her life. If I'd just let her go. You're a monster. I'm a businessman. Lena was collateral damage in a war Mateo started by killing my brother, he straightened. Tonight, we finish what began 4 years ago. And sadly, my dear, you'll be collateral damage too. In the distance, explosions lit up the night sky. The building shook. Raphael's smile finally faded. He pulled out his phone, barked orders in rapid Italian, then looked at Ivy with something like respect. It seems your friend is less restrained than I anticipated. How unfortunate. He walked away, leaving Ivy alone in the dark, the sounds of war growing closer with every passing second. And then, through the chaos, through the gunfire and shouting, she heard something that made her heart stop. Someone was singing. No, someone was humming. Her grandmother's lullaby. Getting closer. Mateo was coming. The dockyard burned like hell had risen to greet the night. Mateo moved through the chaos with brutal precision, his suit jacket abandoned, sleeves rolled to his elbows, gun in hand. Behind him, his men poured through the compound, a tidal wave of violence that crashed against Raphael's defenses. But Mateo barely noticed. His focus had narrowed to a single point, the warehouse at the center of the compound, where Marco's thermal scan had detected a lone heat signature.
Ivy.
He'd killed 3 men already. Shot 2, broke the third one's neck with his bare hands. The old Mateo, the one who'd been buried with Lena, had clawed his way back to the surface. And he was hungry. Boss, east entrance is clear. Vincent's voice crackled through the earpiece. Mateo didn't respond. He was humming. The lullaby. Lena's lullaby. The one Ivy sang every night on the subway platform. He hummed it like a beacon, like a promise, like a prayer to a god he'd stopped believing in 4 years ago. Sleep now, my darling. The night is yours. An explosion rocked the adjacent building. Raphael's men were retreating, falling back to a defensive position.
Good.
Let them run. Mateo only wanted one man tonight, and he'd wade through an ocean of blood to reach him. The warehouse door hung open, broken off its hinges. Mateo entered, gun raised. Inside was a vast empty space, concrete floor, exposed beams, shadows dancing in the light from the fires outside. And in the center, tied to a chair, was Ivy. She looked up, eyes wide with terror and relief. Mateo. Behind you, she screamed. He dove left as gunfire erupted. Bullets pinged off metal. Mateo rolled, came up shooting. 2 of Raphael's men dropped. A third rushed him with a knife. Mateo caught the man's wrist, twisted until bone cracked, and put a bullet through his skull. Silence fell, broken only by the distant sounds of battle and the crackle of flames. Then, slow applause echoed from the rafters above. Impressive, Raphael's voice drifted down. 4 years in retirement, and you haven't lost your touch. Mateo's eyes scanned the darkness. Show yourself, coward. Coward? I'm the one who lured you here. I'm the one who's about to end the Ricci bloodline. Raphael appeared on the catwalk above, flanked by 2 bodyguards. Just like I ended your wife. Don't, the word was a growl. She cried for you, Mateo. At the end, when the blood filled her lungs, she whispered your name.
Did you know that?
Raphael's voice was conversational, pleasant. My men told me. They said she died singing.
Some lullaby.
Neapolitan, I think. Mateo's hands trembled. The gun felt impossibly heavy. And now history repeats. Raphael gestured to Ivy. Another singer. Another woman too close to your frozen heart. Tell me, when this one dies, will you finally learn? Love is weakness, Mateo. It's always been your weakness. Let her go, Mateo's voice was hollow. Your war is with me. Oh, she'll go. Straight to hell. Right after you watch, Raphael nodded to his guards. They raised their weapons, aiming at Ivy. Time slowed. Mateo saw everything with crystal clarity, the guards' fingers tightening on triggers, Ivy's eyes squeezing shut, the smile on Raphael's face. He fired. Not at the guards. At the chain holding the catwalk. The metal exploded. The catwalk lurched violently. One guard tumbled over the edge, screaming. The other grabbed the railing. Raphael staggered, his weapon clattering away. Mateo was already moving. He sprinted to Ivy, knife out, cutting through the zip ties. Can you run? Yes. Then run. Out the back. Find Vincent. Now. But Ivy didn't move. She was staring past him, face pale. Mateo turned. Raphael had recovered his gun. He aimed it not at Mateo but at Ivy. Some patterns, Raphael said softly, refused to break. The gunshot was deafening. But it wasn't Raphael who fired. Mateo had thrown himself in front of Ivy, his own gun raised. Both men fired simultaneously. Raphael's bullet caught Mateo in the shoulder, spinning him. Mateo's shot hit Raphael's center mass. The old man stumbled backward, surprise etched on his face. He looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest, then at Mateo, and laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. Just like your father, Raphael whispered. Died protecting someone who wasn't worth it. He collapsed. Mateo swayed, hand pressed to his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. Behind him, he could hear Ivy crying, her hands on his back, trying to hold him up. You idiot, she sobbed. You stupid, stupid idiot. The warehouse began to collapse, flames eating through the support beams. Vincent burst through the door, eyes widening at the scene. Get her out, Mateo managed. Not without you, Ivy said fiercely. I didn't ask for this.
Didn't ask to be saved.
But I'm not watching you die. She started singing, through tears, through smoke, through the chaos. The lullaby. Lena's lullaby. And somehow, with Ivy holding him and Vincent supporting his other side, Mateo walked out of the burning warehouse. Rafael Costa's empire burned behind them. The cycle had ended. But the cost was still being calculated. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and second chances. Ivy sat in the chair beside Mateo's bed, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. He'd been unconscious for 18 hours. The bullet had shattered his collarbone, nicked an artery. The surgeon said he was lucky.
Lucky.
The word felt obscene. She should have left the moment they'd brought him out of surgery. Should have walked away from this world of blood and violence and men who thought love justified destruction. But every time she stood to leave, she remembered him throwing himself in front of her. Remembered the look in his eyes. Not calculation, not strategy. Just reflex. Like protecting her was as natural as breathing. "You're still here." His voice was rough, barely a whisper. Ivy's head snapped up. Mateo's eyes were open, dark and exhausted. "You're awake." Disappointed. Yes, the word came out sharper than she intended. "You almost died." "For me." "Someone you barely know." "I know you." He tried to sit up, winced and fell back. "I've watched you for weeks. Heard every song. Every story you told between sets at the lounge." His voice softened. "You put honey in your tea. You're afraid of elevators. You cry during old movies. I know you, Ivy. That's not knowing someone. That's stalking them." A ghost of a smile. "Fair." Silence stretched between them. Outside, dawn painted the sky in shades of orange and gold. The city was waking up, oblivious to the war that had ended in blood and fire the night before. "Raphael is dead," Mateo said quietly. "The Costa family is fractured. Most have already pledged loyalty to us, or fled the city. It's over." "Is it?" Ivy leaned forward. "Your second-in-command told me everything while you were in surgery. About the Ricci syndicate. About the businesses you run, the people you've hurt. He wanted me to understand what kind of man you really are." "And do you?" "I understand you're broken," her voice cracked. "I understand you heard your dead wife in my voice and convinced yourself that meant something. That I was some kind of sign or second chance or cosmic joke." Mateo flinched. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like? Explain to me why I'm here. Why you upended my entire life. Why men died last night because a mafia boss decided a homeless girl reminded him of his past. Because when you sang, I remembered what it felt like to be human." The outburst cost him. He gasped, clutching his shoulder. "For years, Ivy. For years, I was a ghost. I ran my empire. I made my money. I killed anyone who crossed me. But I was dead inside. And then I heard you in that subway station singing Lena's song, and for one moment, one single moment, I felt something other than rage." Tears streamed down Ivy's face. "That's not fair. You can't put that on me." "I know," his voice broke. "I know it's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. You deserved better than to get caught in my war. But I'm not sorry I saved you. Even if you hate me, even if you walk out that door right now and I never see you again, I'm not sorry." Ivy stood, pacing to the window. The city stretched endlessly below, millions of people living ordinary lives. She'd wanted so desperately to be one of them, to have an apartment, a career, a normal existence without fear or hunger or cold subway platforms. Mateo had given her that, and taken everything else in return. "Your grandmother," Mateo said softly.
Rosa Martinez.
"Did you know she worked as a housemaid?" Ivy turned. "What?" "In Naples. For a family named Ricci. My family," he met her eyes. 50 years ago. She cared for my mother when she was pregnant with me. Sang to her. That lullaby, it's not just Neapolitan. It's for my family. My mother taught it to Lena. Rosa must have learned it then." The room tilted. That's impossible." Vincent found the records. "Rosa worked for us for 3 years before she immigrated to America." Mateo's voice was gentle. "You're not a replacement for Lena. You're connected to my past in ways neither of us understood. The universe. It brought you to me. Or coincidence brought me to your subway platform." But her voice wavered. "Maybe." He watched her carefully. "Ivy, I'm leaving." "Leaving where?" "The life. The syndicate. All of it." He gestured weakly at himself. What happened last night, it ends with me. Vincent will take over. The Ricci family will survive. But I'm done. I've spilled enough blood. He trailed off, looking impossibly young suddenly. "I want to build something that sings." "What does that even mean?" "It means I have money. Legitimate money, investments, properties. It means I want to open a real music venue. Not a front for criminals, but something pure. Something Lena would have loved. He paused. Something you could perform in without wondering if the man in the back row is a monster. Ivy's heart hammered. You can't just walk away from that world. Watch me. They'll kill you. Then I die clean. His eyes held hers. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to stay. I'm just asking. If I actually do this, if I actually become someone worth knowing, would you give me a chance to prove it? Ivy looked at this broken, violent, impossible man who'd turned her life into chaos, who'd saved her life, who'd heard his dead wife in her voice and decided that meant she was worth a war. She should say no, should run as far and fast as she could. Instead, she walked back to his bedside, took his uninjured hand, and started to sing, softly, gently, the lullaby that had started everything. Mateo's eyes closed. A single tear traced down his cheek. One chance, Ivy whispered when the song ended. Prove to me you can be more than what you were. I will. His grip tightened on her hand. I promise. Outside, the sun rose on a city that had no idea everything had changed. 1 year later, the concert hall was packed. Ivy stood backstage, hands trembling as she adjusted her dress. Deep crimson, elegant, nothing like the thrift store clothes she'd worn on that subway platform. Through the curtain, she could hear the murmur of the crowd. 1,500 people, all here for her. 5 minutes, Miss Martinez, the stage manager, smiled warmly. Ivy nodded, not trusting her voice. A year ago, she'd been singing for pocket change and survival. Now she stood on the precipice of everything she'd ever dreamed of and everything she'd never dared to dream. You'll be magnificent. She turned. Mateo stood in the doorway, looking healthier than she'd ever seen him. The haunted shadows under his eyes had faded. He'd gained weight, filled out. His hair was slightly longer, touched with gray at the temples. He wore a simple dark suit, expensive, but understated.
No flash. No intimidation.
He looked almost peaceful. You're supposed to be in your seat, she said. I know, but I needed to see you first. He stepped closer. Before you go out there and change everything. It's just a concert. No, his voice was soft. It's your debut. Your real beginning. The moment the world learns your name. He paused. I'm proud of you. Over the past year, they'd learned each other slowly. Not as savior and victim. Not as mafia boss and street singer. Just as two broken people trying to build something new from their shattered pieces. Mateo had kept his word. He'd walked away from the Ricci syndicate, leaving Vincent in charge. There had been consequences, threats, attempts on his life, whispers that he'd gone soft. But he'd survived. And gradually, his enemies had found other targets. Other wars. He'd bought an old theater in Chelsea and spent 6 months renovating it. The Nightingale, he'd called it. A venue for artists like Ivy. Talented, hungry, overlooked. No mob money. No blood money. Just music. And Ivy? She'd recorded an album. Found her voice, not just the one that sang, but the one that spoke, that demanded to be heard. She'd learned she was stronger than she'd ever known. I couldn't have done this without you, she said. Yes, you could have. Mateo's smile was genuine. You would have made it eventually. I just accelerated the timeline. Is that what we're calling it? She laughed, but it was gentle, without bitterness. They'd had fights. God, they'd had terrible fights, screaming matches about trust, about his past, about the men he'd killed. Nights where Ivy had packed her bags, certain she couldn't do this. Mornings where Mateo had looked at her with such raw vulnerability that she'd stayed. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy and complicated and sometimes painful. But it was real. 3 minutes, the stage manager called. Mateo moved to leave, then stopped. The lullaby. The one you're closing with. Blood and melody. What about it? Lena would have loved it, his voice caught. Not because you sound like her, but because you made it yours. You took our story, the violence, the pain, all of it, and turned it into something beautiful. Ivy crossed to him, stood on her toes, and kissed his cheek. She'd be proud of you too, for choosing to live instead of just survive. His eyes glistened. Thank you, for giving me a reason to. He slipped out, disappearing into the shadows. The stage lights were blinding. The crowd, deafening. Ivy stood at the microphone, guitar in hand, heart thundering. In the front row, she could see Mateo, no longer in the back, no longer hiding. Just a man in the audience, watching a woman he cared for chase her dreams. Beside him sat Vincent, surprisingly, and Marco, and a dozen others she'd come to know, former soldiers trying to find their own ways out of the darkness. She strummed the opening chords. This song, she said, voice carrying across the hall, is for anyone who's ever felt lost. For anyone who found themselves in the darkest places and discovered they were stronger than they knew. For anyone who learned that redemption isn't about erasing the past, it's about building a future worth living for. The music swelled, and Ivy sang. In the darkness, I found a voice. In the silence, I made a choice. Through the blood and through the pain, I learned to sing, I learned to change. This is my melody, my war, my song. Born from the broken, but I'm moving on. The past is written in scars and fire. But I'm still here, rising higher. Blood and melody, shadow and light. Two souls colliding in the dead of night. You can't erase what's written in stone, but you can choose what seeds are sown. The crowd was silent, transfixed. When the final note faded, the applause erupted like thunder. People rose to their feet, crying, cheering, transformed by something they couldn't quite name. Ivy looked to Mateo. He wasn't applauding. He was just watching her, his hand pressed over his heart, his expression one of wonder. She smiled, mouthed the words, "We made it." He nodded.
We did.
As the applause continued, Ivy thought about the girl she'd been a year ago, cold, hungry, invisible to a city that had no use for her. That girl had sung for survival, for coins, for one more night of not disappearing completely. But she wasn't that girl anymore. She'd found her voice, and in finding it, she'd helped a broken man find his humanity. The Ruthless Mafia boss was gone, replaced by a man who managed artists and built dreams instead of empires of fear. The poor girl was gone, replaced by a singer who knew her worth. They'd both been reborn in fire and blood and music. And standing there, bathed in light and applause, Ivy realized something profound. Sometimes salvation didn't come from being saved. Sometimes it came from choosing to save yourself, and in doing so, saving someone else. The concert continued, song after song, story after story. And in the front row, Matteo Ricci, no longer a boss, no longer a ghost, simply listened. The girl with the subway song had finally found her stage. And the man who'd listened in silence had finally found his peace.